From time immemorial, it has been stressed that where guns and tanks fail, dialogue cannot. Well, Southeast leaders are assessing the option of dialogue to resolve the problem posed by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB in the region. During a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja, the highly respected Igbo greats, led by First Republic parliamentarian and the former Minister of Aviation, Mbazulike Amici, demanded unconditional release of the leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, from detention. Well, President Buhari told them that that demand is heavy, but assured his guests he will consider it. Adekunle, so what do you make of that meeting and how it went down?
Well, I was happy that at least after a lot of tension, people are talking. And that's what should be happening in democracy. After a lot of charges, after it was brought back, after everything, now the leaders are talking. I so much like that. And I like the response of Mr. President that he will consider it. That is, it's not throwing away, you know, the options. Oh, that's great. But when it comes to unconditional release, I believe the president will be properly briefed. You know, there are a lot of implications when you do unconditional and conditional release. The president will be properly briefed. I'm too sure of this. And I will be happy if the president eventually, the government eventually, you know, withdraws charges, saying that you can't interfere. No, you can't interfere because you started the process. That is, the prosecution was started by the executive, and at any time you can discontinue charges. You can withdraw charges and discontinue. But in all of this, we need to think about the way and manner we handle issues about self-determination. By our laws, these are not crimes, as long as you don't indulge in violence. Now that leaders of thought are pleading on behalf of Kanu, I want the government to think properly, because it will have a lot of implications for future, you know, issues like self-determination, because tomorrow another group may turn up and do this and do that. But what I'm most excited about is the silence from that part of the country. I'm talking from the elite. Now they are talking. I'm happy about that. I don't want a situation whereby we want to hold the election in the Southeast. We start begging again. We start, you know, that please let us hold the election, or we start, you know, getting afraid that the election may not hold and all those things. Nigerians will be extremely happy if this, you know, can happen. That is, if the government and these, you know, respected leaders, you know, can come out with the best way forward, because this wasn't what this government met on the ground. The situation in the Southeast. So the same government can get it resolved, so that by the time this president is leaving office, as he keeps to, as he likes to say, that he doesn't want to leave the office as a failure. So resolving this Southeast conundrum will be one of the achievements that I will be proud of if it's in to office.
Do you agree with the Adekunle stance?
Well, at some point we must find political solution to issues like this. My own worries in all of this is what the leader of the delegation tried to address, and that is Nnamdi Kanu ready for this political solution? Because what it means is, if he's ready for this political solution, then that demand, that agitation for Biafra Republic must be dropped. That, for me, is my own understanding of it. If the leader of the delegation has said, yes, it's my son, and the only time I've had reason to speak with him, he listened to me. Has he seen him now? With all of what has happened, between when he was arrested in Kenya and brought back into the country? Has he spoken with him? Has he tried to gauge his mood? Is he ready for this? Or it's going to be another, let me get my freedom and go out to resuscitate this demand? Because if the man who is involved directly does not give him his words, it's words on this, then I'm not sure we are going anywhere. Because it's easy for him to come out and say, yes, I agree, and then it starts all over again. There must be something. Because what happened the last time when he was granted bail was somebody coming to say, see, I can keep this man in check. I can hold him to the words of this bail. You read it. It was not only that he won't travel out, he won't do this, he won't do this, he won't do this. But what happened after? So that's the only fear I have. Otherwise, President Muhammadu Buhari is on course. He can't go ahead and, you know.
All right. Okay. So we have a guest, you know, for this discussion. In addition to these legitimate points that you both have raised, Achuke Chude Achike, thank you so much. Welcome to Journalist Hangout this Sunday. So where do you stand? First, there is the issue of, you know, minus what people are saying, these influential Igbo leaders are saying, making a case for Nnamdi Kanu. There's also the issue of what the man is saying at this time that we're having the discussion of a possible political solution now, which will include the release you know, the release of Nnamdi Kanu from these treasonable charges he's facing.
Yeah, well, obviously, they can't be, you know, there's a saying that you don't shave a man's head in his absence. I want to believe that they cannot be discussing the issue of Nnamdi Kanu without him having an input, whether directly or indirectly. They have to get some things from Nnamdi Kanu that would inform the position they want to take with regards to their own discussion with the government. Obviously, it's not just. Let me just put it this way: it's not just the Igbo, you know, leaders that want a solution to the problem of Nnamdi Kanu. The federal government wants a solution to the problem. And in a way, if you know, look at, if you've been watching the body language of the federal government, they are not exactly hostile. Even before this meeting of Igbo leaders, they have not been hostile to the possibility of having a solution to the, you know, Nnamdi Kanu dilemma. And so it is also not out of the way that these discussions have been taking place before, you know, behind the scenes, before this open delegation. This delegation went openly to the president to also table their request to him. Obviously, Nnamdi Kanu is part of, you know, has been carried along one way or the other. And the issue of even a non-conditional release of Nnamdi Kanu is not exactly so. Yes, the Igbo leaders have said so, but even with the request that they have made to the government, you find out that there is a condition there. Because they say, look, I can speak with this guy. We can talk to this guy. I mean, to Nnamdi Kanu. And they will be able to keep him in control. That in itself is a condition, you know, because they are giving the government, the federal government, assurances about the future behavior of Nnamdi Kanu. So, but again, it is political talk when they say it is not going to be conditional. It definitely has to be conditional because there are certain things that the government would want to have. The government will not want to go back to the status quo ante. The situation it was before Nnamdi Kanu was eventually arrested. So they want some kind of reassurances that, look, if we do this, what are the guarantees? Is this guarantees that the government is looking for? The government wants to settle this matter because for as long as Nnamdi Kanu is in detention, it is going to continually be a problem for the Nigerian state and for the federal government because of the one simple reason. Any man that has control, you know, over or influence over 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 Nigerians is not somebody that you're going to, reckon with slightly. He has some influence over a vast majority of, parts of this country, the people from parts of this country, beyond even the influence of the federal government and even the state governors. And so that's what makes him important. Otherwise, there's no basis to even begin to discuss with him. So this is what I think at this particular, point in time, it is going to be conditional if it is done ultimately at the end of the day.
I still want to stay with you on the issue of, the mien or, body language of Mr. Kanu at this time now, as in, even though a lot of water has passed under the bridge, but it was relieving for many, looking at how peaceful the Anambra State elections were, but events preceding the polls gave one so much alarm, especially when you saw how, IPOB seemed to be speaking from both sides, making people say perhaps there is not much control from the top over the group itself. But but how does this fit in into this moves now to get him out of his legal battles with the government now? Yes, if they indeed get him to say he will be of good behavior, quote and unquote, can that be said of the rest of the group?
Well, when you have a crisis situation like such as we have had in the Southeast, or anywhere for that matter, you have a conflictual situation. The tendency to lose control sometimes, if care is not taken, is always there. The tendency for other groups who have a completely different motivation to also be involved in the crisis is always there. Whether you are talking about all the other crisis points or conflict points we have had in other parts of the world, you talk about the Irish Republican Army, for instance. Even the Niger Delta, problem with men at the time, it was difficult, even though men was at that particular point in time the major player in the insurgency or the militancy that was going on in the South. But there were other groups that had also emerged. And even the possibility of the federal authorities also playing a role is not far-fetched, because you see, they want a particular narrative. And so they want to push, I'm not saying that is what happened in this instance, but it does happen that you have infiltration, you have other groups. But the reality is that the major group, dominant group in the whole of that scenario is the IPOB. So whether people took advantage of what IPOB was doing or not, IPOB had to take blame or responsibility for some of the things that were also going on. Because even if you are not involved, like you said, you are not involved, then you move away to make sure that you curtail, other groups to refrain them from doing the things that you yourself, you're saying are unpalatable to your organization and all that. So these are some of the things that are, and I guess that in a way, this situation also played out in the Southeast. Of course, ultimately, you talk about the political solution. It has to be a political solution. If you ask me, ultimately, at the end of the day, the president says, well, he has no history of interfering with the judiciary and so on. He has always allowed them to do their work. Perhaps that might be so. But when his government or government officials, linked to him, get involved with, things that have to do maybe unofficially with the judiciary, just such as the invasion of judges' quarters or what happened to Mary Odili, and the activities of the federal government in DSS in a sitting court when they tried to arrest somebody that was inside the court premises. And so you cannot remove the president or exonerate the president for interfering with the judicial process. So that has happened, and he's in a position, really, if they can find a solution and he has assurances that will satisfy the government, I think that might just be the way to go. But the conditions, like I said, we have to be given. It's not, you can't have this kind of situation, at least from the perspective of the federal government, happen the way it has been happening, for some time.
All right, well, let me put you on hold and allow BKO to speak on this subject. President Buhari, BKO has said his interference on the issue of a possible Kanu release would run contrary to the principles of separation of powers. But, you know, many are still of the view that a political solution might just be the way to go, which will be beneficial for both sides. Achike has even said as much. And, you know, our guest here in the studio, what do you think?
The president said that it does not interfere in the judicial process. But we all know that it's no big deal. The Attorney General of the Federation is, by law, the most powerful minister in the country. By law, he is the only minister whose job cannot be outsourced by the president. That means the president cannot delegate his duties to anyone. He is the only minister that has to be academically qualified to do the job that he does. By law, he has to be academically qualified to be an attorney general. There is no other ministerial position where that is stipulated. So I'm saying that the Attorney General of the Federation has the power by law to discontinue any criminal matter without even entertaining any form of explanation for his action. And the only person who can question him and sack him is the president. He can discontinue any criminal matter. So if it pleases the president to opt for a political solution in this matter, all he needs to do is to tell the Attorney General that, look, I'm not interested in a judicial resolution of this matter. I want a political resolution. The Attorney General can go ahead to now do what is called the nolle prosequi, whereby he would discontinue that trial without anybody having the power to take him to court for the action that he has taken, for the steps that he has taken. So it's not a difficult thing. We want a peaceful resolution of this matter. It's a good thing that we now have this old man led by
Chief Amechi. All right, well, Wiki was making a point there on that Igbo group of greats that visited the president.
All right, the president to allow for a political solution. And the man made it clear. I said, look, businesses are crumbling in the southeast. Education is dying. I want you to be the president who saw fire and proceeded to quench it. These were nice words from a 93-year-old man to President Buhari. And President Buhari was quite generous by telling him that, look, even at this age, you are still sound upstairs. There are people who are not even half your age who cannot think straight like you. So if you remember that the Attorney General said some weeks back that they will not rule out any form of solution on this matter, then we can be encouraged that indeed a political resolution of this matter can happen. Then what happened in Anambra? The fact that IPOB decided against the civil disobedience that it had called for, the sit-at-home that it had called for, also gives us hope that these IPOB guys can be spoken to. I've said repeatedly on the program that people like Chukwemeka Ezefe, former governor, are among people who can talk to IPOB and they will listen. People say, oh, Igbo leaders are not doing anything. They are not taking steps. They are not doing anything. They appear to be happy with what's going on. That is absolute fallacy. As we have seen the old man who led them to President Buhari said on 2 occasions he interfaced with Nnamdi Kanu and he got him to change his mind about civil disobedience. So he's saying, if you release him to me, all of the things that he used to do, the things he used to say, I guarantee you that he will no longer do. Don't also forget that Kanu also said 2 days ago that he was suffering in the DSS cell. So it means that he too is probably willing to be, to accept a political resolution of this matter that will give him the freedom that has been denied him. No one can compare being locked up in Kuje prison or Ikoyi prison with being locked up in the DSS cell. They can ensure that for this, nobody talks to you. You are just on your own. 24 hours will look like 48 hours or even 72 hours to you. If you get locked up in the DSS cell. I've been arrested by the DSS before. I know what I'm talking about. So Kanu is probably even warm to the idea. So we've had to go along this path before when we interfaced with the Niger Delta Avengers and they stopped bombing Nigeria's oil terminals. So sometimes it is not force that will give you the desired result. Sometimes dialogue can actually guarantee you peace that all the weapons in the world cannot give you.
All right, I'll allow Adekule to ask Achike the final question for this segment.
Okay, Achike is still there.
Yes.
I want to know. Hello?
Achike.
I'm listening.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. So in this, when political solutions like this are being, put together, don't you think that beyond Kanu, that the federal government should start addressing some of the issues that gave birth to the agitation to allow, to come up with a more sustainable solution? Don't you think so?
Look, I think we'll be deceiving ourselves or living in fool's paradise. To think that when you resolve the issue of IPOB today and then that of his followers, that you have resolved all the issues. You have not resolved, all the issues. Look, there is a pending situation on ground. And so you are looking for a solution. But you must go back to the root cause of the problems that are afflicting this country. And it's not just, it's even because people have often said that if there's no Nnamdi Kanu today, there will be another one tomorrow. If there's no Sunday Igbo today, there will be a Sunday Igbo tomorrow. If you do not have the terrorism that you are having in the Northeast and insurgency, you're going to have another one tomorrow. The reality is that there's a root cause, and the root cause ultimately has to do with bad governance that has bedeviled this country for decades and brought us to where we are today. The lack of education in this country, proper education, especially, for instance, in the north part of this country, the politics of exclusion that has taken part over the years, the grading, we've talked about illiteracy, the poverty that has blighted this country, and so many other issues. These are the root causes. These are what the things that have led to us. Led us to where we are today. So ultimately, any government that wants to, that's going to inherit the Nigerian state in terms of governance after this governance has done its part, must also be confronted with the issues that are confronted in the Nigerian state, the deep socio-economic contradictions of Nigeria today. And so it is critical as you are resolving this, and people have also talked about the inevitability of a discussion in the country. It must happen, because even when you have resolved what is going on now with regards to Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB, the killings in the north have not stopped. Those people in the north are Nigerians, whether it's in Benue State, it's in Plateau State, that must be of concern to everybody, regardless of whether you are from that place or not, because it's a federation. And we are all citizens of this country. I cannot be happy when our home, is stable, and then the things surrounding us are not, I mean, the places surrounding us are not stable. And that's why when you have an international crisis in your hands, for instance, within the West African sub-region, every country within that sub-region must be concerned, because breakdown in insecurity in one part of West Africa has a way of permeating all the other countries within the region. So we have seen what has happened in the north. We have seen the insecurity creeping down to other parts of this country, the southwest, the southeast, and other parts of the country. So we must, yes, look at the immediate issue, a political solution to what is going on in the southeast. But once you're doing that, you are also looking at the root causes and looking for ways to handle this. And of course, we have talked about, identified bad governance in this country as the major reason why all of these socio-economic, political contradictions have been with us for quite some time now, and are threatening to derail our country.
Achike, today, thank you so much for your contributions on Journalist Hangout this Sunday.